Where is the scariest place you have been? I had just crossed over the border into China from Kazakhstan. For some reason, my buddy and I made it a plan to hit as many haunted houses as we could. For whatever reason, there were plenty on our route from Moscow to Delhi. We found out about one in Urumqi and decided to go. As we went down these dark stairs into what seemed like once was part of an underground system, everything just felt wrong. The person there had us sit in these gross chairs in front of this odd raised platform. Out of nowhere, this girl, and I mean no more than 14, comes out in a skimpy leopard print outfit with a snake. We're getting GTFO vibes, but are the only ones there, and the dudes running the place are right behind us. So we proceed to watch this girl pop the snake's head into her mouth and swing it around like a helicopter. After the show, they tried to guide us to these rooms with the grossest mattresses on the planet on the ground. It was really sad, creepy, and disgusting. All we could do is shove some rubles in the guy's hand and run out. A reconstructed subway which exploded years ago in Daegu, Korea. They memorialized the explosion on site. Scorched walls, melted people's items, burned phone booths and all, but the scariest was the scorched walls with writings and handprints of the people that were trapped during the explosion. This subway is one of the busiest stations even today due to being the city's downtown area. The old graveyard of Alargue in Hérault, France. I was camping in the neighborhood and we visited the village. Old and beautiful. We were young and inquisitive and climbed the wall around an old graveyard. What we found were 19th century graves, often in little grave houses. But grave robbers had yanked the lead coffins out of the houses, and everywhere were opened coffins with skeletons. It was actually very sad to behold. There were 5 of us, and without a warning, we all ran to the wall and jumped back to the world of the living. We all had a feeling which should not stay there a second longer. We could not explain it, just an overwhelming feeling of terror. About 15 years later, I passed that cemetery on the back of a motorbike and just looked through a crack in the wall. I was struck with that same feeling. It is not a good place. Last year, I lived in a suburb in Gifu Prefecture. Down the street was a broken down old house, and my friend and I decided to do a photo shoot there one night because an old broken Japanese house looked pretty cool. When I say broken down, I mean entire walls were missing and exposing the inside, floors were broken, and lots of old junk everywhere. Pipes and beams were exposed and there were crates of old belongings. There was one crate though that had hundreds of photos of the same girl, as a child to adulthood, black and white, developed from film. It was always just her and no one else in the photo. I thought it was strange that the old owners could just leave photos of this girl behind. The more I looked at them, I noticed she didn't seem happy in a lot of them. I got really uncomfortable, and so my friend and I left and abandoned the photo shoot. I think she might have been a victim of something, and that's why her photos were left behind in a half-destroyed house. Got really freaked out that night. Probably a cave wriggling through a quote-unquote lemon drop as they call it, where you go feet first down a skinny tunnel and have to wriggle down about 12 feet before you drop into a chamber below. About halfway, my shoulders got stuck and it took 5 excruciating minutes to get loose. I don't know why I went spelunking. I'm claustrophobic. I don't know why I went in there. It was a free event and I was probably pretty high on board at the time. An abandoned set of buildings that were part of a former college campus, next to an abandoned military airfield. There was a lot to explore, but it definitely gave off an unsettling vibe. There was even an enterable hangar that had a bunch of torn gas masks lying on a pile in the middle of it. Not really a place, but thing. I was in a storm cellar during a tornado and it was not the happiest thing ever. Ears popped, the pressure plummeted, it sounded like a freight train. Everything sounded like we were going to be sucked up. Not fun. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. I don't know why this happened, but by the end of it you'll understand when I say my parents aren't known for making the best decisions. So, when I was 9 or 10, my dad took me to this house that had been basically destroyed by fire. I don't remember exactly whether my mother was there or she just okayed this. They were not together, ever. There were other adults involved in this too. I think my uncle and my other dad's buddies, but I was the only kid. Anyway, we went into this fire-destroyed house to look for stuff that could be salvaged. We found very little, and really that should have been nothing at all. All I really recall anymore was an 8-track tape that had been warped just enough by the fire to play 2 songs at once in spots. So there's little kid me, after dark, picking my way through this burnt house full of debris, and I get into one room and look in what had been the closet, and there's this shag rug looking thing there, which was when my dad helpfully told me it was not a rug, it was something far worse. words that I'd rather not say. It's too sad. All I'll say was that a dog was in the house when the fire happened. And then after that, I was encouraged to look through the kid's room and all his toys to see if anything was in good enough condition for me to take home. I've been afraid of dying in a fire ever since. Got stuck in my car in a freezing step during a really bad snowstorm at minus 45 degrees Celsius. The snow was real deep and my car was stuck so badly it would take a truck to pull it out. Cell phone didn't work, maps didn't work. For those who don't know, once the engine dies, you have about 12 hours before you freeze to death. The worst thing is that the snow was so deep and the storm was so bad they probably wouldn't have found me until spring. I have been in a bunch of life-threatening situations in my lifetime, but nothing is as scary as freezing to death in the middle of nowhere. Thankfully, another guy saw me. He happened to be driving a real pumped-up Land Cruiser, all geared up. He gave me a real confused look once he realized I was driving a Jaguar XE, probably the last car you want to drive there. It would have been okay if I stayed on the road, I guess, but I couldn't see because of the storm and wandered about 50 meters off-road. He pulled me out and led me for 2 hours at 40 kilometers an hour, given he could easily do 120 thanks to his car. The Strid at Bolton Abbey. It's not too far from where I used to live, so I decided to go there once. It's the most unassuming thing you can imagine, but knowing how dangerous it is just makes it seem ominous, especially when you consider how many people it may have killed and how few people ever wash up. I didn't go within 10 feet of the thing. My brother went to visit my uncle in Papua New Guinea. He stayed the night in Port Moresby, one of the most dangerous cities in the world. His escort was a friend of my uncle's, an Australian federal police officer, that's FBI equivalent, and the hotel had armed guards at the gate, the front door, the desk, and hallway to his room, from memory. The room was also protected, solid doors and stuff, with a panic room and an escape route should the main room be breached. So yeah, I'd say that would be a mite scary.